peace, mercy, and blessings of God be upon you. Eggs are one of the most important food sources in the world and are considered a staple in many daily diets. They find their way into almost every meal, breakfast, lunch recipes, and even dinner. Most desserts include eggs as well. Eggs are a rich source of proteins, vitamins, and minerals, and they are readily available almost everywhere. But this is when we look at the egg as something to eat. However, if we consider the egg as a part of the chicken's reproductive process, what's inside the egg is supposed to eventually turn into a chick, hatch, and grow into a chicken, right? But have you ever wondered why the eggs we buy from stores never hatch, no matter how long we keep them at home? Welcome. And before we start, if you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe and activate the bell so that you get our videos as soon as they're released. The first thing we need to know about the life cycle of the egg, the chick, and the chicken is how this hard egg is even formed inside any chicken. First of all, for a chicken to reach the stage where it can lay eggs, it must have reached sexual maturity, which usually starts at around 5 months old. At this stage, the chicken has a large number of ova inside its left ovary. They are all stuck together. The pituitary gland then produces some hormones, including a hormone called FSH, which causes the ova to mature one by one. Once an ovum reaches the required level of maturity, it separates from the others and moves to a place called the infundibulum, where it stays for about 15 minutes. Then, it moves to another area responsible for forming the clear albumen that surrounds the ovum, which we call the egg white. It stays in this area for about 2 to 3 hours, then moves to the isthmus area, where it settles for another 15 minutes, during which the inner shell membrane is formed. This thin, semi-transparent layer sticks to the inside of the shell and supports it, protecting the egg's contents from any damage if the outer shell cracks. After that, the ovum moves to the most important stage of egg formation, which takes place in the uterus. The egg stays here for 20 hours so that a hard layer of calcium carbonate can form around it, turning it into the hard shell that we all know. After the 20 hours pass, the egg is released from the chicken's body, a process that takes approximately 25 to 28 hours in total. What's supposed to happen next is that the chicken sits on the egg until a cute little chick hatches out of it. But in reality, that's not always what happens. Many people think that the eggs we buy from stores are stolen from under the mother hen without her noticing. But the truth is, not every time a chicken lays an egg does she sit on it to hatch chicks. After reaching sexual maturity, chicken lays between 250 and 300 eggs per year, at a rate of about 5 eggs per week. Some well-fed chickens that get enough daylight during the day can lay an egg daily. This also explains why not every time a chicken lays an egg does she sit on it, as otherwise we'd only ever see little chickens walking around, with the older ones spending their entire lives sitting since they lay eggs every day. Especially when we know that a chicken sits on an egg for about 21 full days, because eggs only hatch at a temperature between 37 and 38 degrees Celsius and a humidity level of 50 to 70%. So here's the question. Which eggs does the chicken sit on, and which go to the supermarket? And if we expose the eggs from the supermarket to the same temperature and humidity, can they also hatch without the mother hen? First of all, we need to understand that not all chickens that lay eggs sit on them. Some chickens' maternal instincts kick in at certain times for no apparent reason, and they decide to sit on the eggs in the nest, whether they're theirs or not. You'll see these hens gather some eggs in a nest full of straw and sit on them until they hatch. But this doesn't mean that all the eggs under her will hatch. Eggs that will hatch are the ones that result from mating between a hen and a rooster. You might say, but isn't it true that chickens only lay eggs after mating? No, that's a common misconception. Chickens lay eggs whether mating has occurred or not. For chickens, eggs are just like ova for women. They are produced regularly inside the body. If fertilized by a male, they turn into embryos. If not fertilized, the reproductive system automatically expels them from the body. That's why no chick will emerge from an egg unless it's been fertilized by a rooster while still inside the chicken's body. And the chicken must sit on the fertilized egg for 3 weeks pass, or else it will spoil. Since the chicken that decides to sit on the eggs doesn't know the difference between fertilized and unfertilized eggs, she sits on them all. So, is it just luck whether there's a chicken side or not? Before you start feeling sorry for the little chicks, let me tell you that most of the eggs you've eaten throughout your life were unfertilized. That's because the chickens raised in farms designed specifically for commercial purposes are divided into those that lay eggs for reproduction and those that lay eggs for egg trade. Only the chickens raised for reproduction and increased production have roosters in the same place. The other chickens, whose sole purpose is egg production, don't have any roosters with them, so all the eggs they lay are unfertilized. But does this apply to all types of eggs on the market? Actually, no. This division of chickens only happens in commercial farms. For example, if you buy eggs from farmers who sell local eggs, there's a good chance that some of the eggs are fertilized. So, this answers the question we asked at the beginning of the episode. Can the eggs we buy from stores hatch into chicks? It's possible if the egg is fertilized, fresh, hasn't been more than 2 weeks, and we provide the right environment of temperature and humidity by placing the egg in an incubator. But since no one buys eggs to incubate them for 21 days straight, it's very rare for anyone to buy an egg that hatches. Here's one last question. If you do buy a fertilized egg, is it still safe to eat like any other egg? And is there a way to tell the difference between fertilized and unfertilized eggs? Before I tell you how to identify the difference, we need to correct a common misconception. Many people believe that when they crack an egg and find a blood spot inside, it's a fertilized egg, and the blood is from the embryo or chick that was forming. But in reality, these blood spots have nothing to do with embryo development. They can be caused by the rupture of tiny blood vessels during the formation of the ovum inside the chicken's body, or they may be the result of hormonal fluctuations that cause slight bleeding in the reproductive system. In some rare cases, poor nutrition or a weak chicken can also be the cause. But in all cases, as long as the blood isn't widespread inside the egg and hasn't changed its smell, the egg is safe to eat and won't cause any problems. But whether you eat it or feel too grossed out to do so, rest assured that it has nothing to do with an embryo. Now moving on to the last part. How can we tell if an egg is fertilized or not? There are 2 ways to distinguish between fertilized and unfertilized eggs. The first way is before the egg is cracked. In this case, you can shine a bright light, like a phone flashlight, on the egg. If it's transparent, it's unfertilized. But if it's completely opaque, it's fertilized. In both cases, the egg is safe to eat, as long as it hasn't been exposed to the conditions that promote cell division and embryo formation. However, if it has been exposed to these conditions and then developed numerous blood vessels inside, it's no longer safe to eat because the embryo has started to develop. Someone might say, am I supposed to check every egg with my phone? Of course not. When you use an egg, you'll usually crack it open unless you're boiling it. If you find it full of blood or clearly visible blood vessels, discard it. But if it looks normal, with clear white and yellow, it's almost impossible to tell if it was fertilized or not, because the only difference is a small white spot in the center of the yolk. Since both types are safe to eat, don't stress about determining if it's fertilized or not. Most likely, the eggs you buy are unfertilized. That's all for now? Who made it this far? Everyone who did, you're the best. Give us a like before you leave, so we know how many of you stuck around until the end. And don't forget, if you have a question that keeps you up at night, write it in the comments under the video so we can answer it. Goodbye.